I've been lean bulking for 10 months and I've essentially perfected this process. In those 10 months, I've gained only 15 pounds. I'm staying at around 14% body fat right now at approximately 212 pounds on average. I've gained just under an inch on my arms, over 3 inches on my shoulder width. I've only gained 2 inches on my waist, 1.5 inches on my chest, over an inch on my thighs, and a measly 0.5 inches on my calves. But can you blame me? We're working on the calves, all right? With that said, I'm going to walk you through exactly what I'm doing because I still have another 5 months or so left in this bulk. I'm going to give you some takeaways that you can apply to maximize your results, because even at a relatively advanced stage like myself, if you do this properly, you can still massively change your physique. So if you're watching this and you're not near advanced yet, you're closer to a beginner or intermediate, this can absolutely change your physique in just 1 year. So stay tuned. Let's go ahead and go through everything. We're going to start with the nutrition aspect, okay? So right off the bat, calories and macros currently are at about 3,000. As far as calories are concerned, 240 grams of protein is where that's been at for the last little while. I'm going with about 70 grams of fat and the rest are carbs. So I believe that's somewhere around 360 grams of carbs at the moment. Now, across this time, when I first started, I've got some videos up on the channel that I've updated my days of eating and so on. And I had higher protein intakes at one point, and I've lowered them slightly over time as I've made more room for carbs, and calories have gone up and down and up and down. And right now, after a recent somewhat of a cut for maybe a week, if you want to call it that, or a recomp type of thing, I have been able to bring my calories down to about 3,000, and I'm gaining off of this, okay? So somewhere between, they're supposed to be 3,000. Sometimes I'm hitting slightly above, but you get the point. Somewhere between 3,000 and probably 3,300 is where I'm able to maintain my current weight at. So I'm not actually pushing to gain again just yet. So it's somewhat more of a maintenance sitting at around 3,000, all right? Micronutrient density is everything. And one of the things that I've introduced that has made an insane difference as far as testosterone levels go is, at least just based on how I feel, I've done blood work at the beginning of the bulk, but I haven't done an update since. But I can tell you there's certain signs that your testosterone is increasing. And one of those things that I've done to help with this new micronutrient density that really can have an impact on hormones and just recovering faster and immune health and everything is red onions. I have a serious amount of red onions, and this is something that I really started doing mostly in the last 10 months. I have about 2 to 3 cups of raw red onions every day. I add them to my egg whites and to my salad, and these have just been making me feel amazing. Now, I'm not sure if that's the only variable, but it's one of the few key things that I've made a change on and kept over time, along with whole eggs. So for many years, I actually stopped eating whole eggs up until the beginning of and the duration of this bulk. Now I'm eating 3 eggs every single day along with my egg whites. And that could also be playing a role in the sense that I am feeling maybe the best I've ever felt as far as my training is concerned. And of course, that is what we want to see when maximizing a bulk, is your training should feel absolutely insane. You should be progressing very rapidly. You should feel very aggressive in the gym. And even outside of the gym sometimes. This is all a good indication that hormone levels are healthy and moving in the right direction. Strength is following suit. Muscle mass is following suit. You're feeling and looking fuller. Your body's making good use of the nutrients you're giving it. And again, it's not enough to hit your macros. You want to make sure that you're focusing on massive amounts of nutrient density, lots of fiber. You want everything internally regulated and healthy. So I'm making sure that that's the case for the most part. Of course, we're being flexible. I've got a decent amount of calories. The odd time, I'm opting for some pizza or some ice cream or some donuts, some Tim Hortons, which is not, why would I even mention Tim Hortons? It's not like it's a sort of a luxury meal, but you get the point. You need some fast food here or there, that's fine. Actually, recently, I tried Popeyes, Louisiana. Popeyes, Louisiana is what it's called, maybe. The fast food restaurant, first time I ever tried it, and boy, did I realize I've been sleeping on that fast food restaurant. In fact, that single time of having it absolutely blew Chick-fil-A out of the water. It blew Wendy's out of the water and all these other fast food restaurants. Popeyes, Louisiana, this isn't sponsored, but if I were to take a sponsorship from a fast food company, it would be them. Anyways, you're keeping things flexible, but 6 days a week, for the most part, maybe sometimes 5, we're going super nutrient dense, lots of fiber, etc. So that's my nutrition, and that's where I'm at currently. I will be making another push now, so bumping calories up. to move towards 220 by the end of this bulk, which will be essentially December 31st, is what I have sort of on the board at the moment, okay? Now, sleep. I'm getting 8 hours every night, almost without fail. And a big thing for this, I'm going to mention a little bit more later on, but I'm making my sleep schedule easy for me to get this amount. So even back on the channel, you'll see times where I was waking up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. all the time. Now I'm waking up at 7, which means I have so much room and flexibility. It helps that my entire lifestyle has changed to a large degree as well. But going to sleep at 10, 11 p.m. is pretty fucking reasonable, I would say, for anybody out there. And if I do that, like, let's say I go to sleep latest at 11, what the fuck you really doing past 11 anyways? I'm still getting 8 hours of solid sleep, okay? I'm waking up at a very reasonable time. And sleep has been a massive priority, and it always should be. You're trying to bulk, you're trying to maximize muscle growth and performance, you got to treat your body like an athlete, okay? And athletes are always prioritizing sleep to a crazy degree for a good reason. Hydration and teas. So I'm always at my very minimum of 4 liters of water per day. I'm not including the water I drink during my training, by the way. So outside of training, 4 liters a day, including 750 milliliters right when I wake up. And then I have a certain system. Ideally, you want to systemize this to make sure hydration is top of the line as far as water intake goes. There's other components to hydration we'll get into shortly, but that is definitely key. And I stay on top of that no matter what. I don't miss it ever. If I'm going out somewhere, I'm going to buy or bring a large amount of water capacity with me. So whether that's empty bottles I can fill up, or literally purchasing water bottles wherever I go to take with me, make sure I'm getting enough water constantly. As well as tea. So I actually always have been a big tea drinker for the last maybe 5-6 years, ever since I read a book called Eat to Beat Disease, which is essentially breaking down every type of food that exists and sort of ranking them all based on which ones were shown in the literature to be most impactful for your health. And green tea was basically the top of that list. Having multiple cups a day was directly correlated to individuals that maximized health across all markers, reduced chance of illness, cancer, all that stuff. So I do have a lot of tea, and that's going to help increase hydration as well. So that's hydration. Now let's talk about programming. So my current split is a push, pull, legs, arms, rest, repeat. So it's a modification of the push, pull, leg cycle. I've tried different splits since the beginning of the bulk. If you saw my video starting this bulk off, I was starting at more of a bro split 1 time per week frequency, and I tried a much more lower volume approach and higher intensity approach, and actually this made me smaller during the course of my bulk. Correct. I went with the low volume, high intensity approach. While in a surplus, I was shrinking and getting fatter. Okay, and if you don't believe me, I have an entire video breaking it down. You can check that up here, where I go into depth as to why that's the case and how it just goes to show low volume, high intensity isn't for everybody. Okay, so I'm now on a more moderate to higher volume split and a lot more frequency. So for example, my focus has always been chest, delts. At the beginning of the bulk, chest, delts, and arms, okay, mainly. Now, my focus has switched to delts first for the remainder of this bulk. Chest has been pretty good. It's come up quite a bit. I know I've gained 3 inches on the delts, but nonetheless, there's a lot more room for size on my delts. My arms are still going to be second priority there, so I'm increasing frequency and volume on both of those. And for my arms, my volumes have been pretty high for a while now, and I'm managing quite well, so I'm going to keep it there. Low volumes for my arms do not work, so I have a split that has a dedicated arm day for that reason. And if you struggle with any body part, you should have a day dedicated solely to that, and you should be hitting it at least once per week directly. Like ideally twice per week is what I should be saying. You should be hitting it at least twice per week directly if you want maximum growth, so you can organize higher volumes in a more efficient manner. Okay, now I also did a higher frequency split with the slightly lower volumes and higher intensity to try to optimize even further. It doesn't work for me. I need more moderate to higher volumes, and by the way, that's probably the case for most people out there as you move from beginner to intermediate or advanced. Okay, there's a lot of talk these days about, oh, if you're advanced, you need less volume than a beginner. It's completely backwards, guys, and it's said by people that want to be contrarian, that overemphasize and put way too much stock in a couple of theoretical papers that don't translate to real life, just based on the literal common sense aspect of things, but on top of that, practical application, observation, coaching experience, and so forth. So moderate to high volumes, high frequency is going to be best to bring up lagging body parts, okay? My legs, I'm chilling. Twice a week, the usual, right? I mean, once in that entire cycle, I don't need to hit my legs all that hard. I hit walking lunges the other day for the first time in months. That's probably enough glute work for the rest of the year for me, all right? I mean, they're still kind of sore. That's enough glute work for the rest of the year. That's how little I have to hit glutes, for example. So you got to mix and match the split to what works best for you, and it's typically going to be some sort of a spin-off off of one of these higher frequency generic type of splits, okay? And I'll be making more videos on splits coming soon, as I have to redo those since I had a ton of successful videos covering those in the past. Now, let's talk about cardio and daily activity. Daily activity, very simple, 10K steps a day minimum. Now, it's generally actually around 10 or 11,000 steps I get, which has been shown in the literature to probably maximize health benefits. 9,000 to 11,000 steps on average will probably maximize health benefits. And beyond that, okay, you're boosting metabolism a little bit more if need be, or just because you were more active that day. Who knows? Doesn't matter. I'm going 10K steps at least. Some days it's 15K, but I definitely don't want a day below that, all right? Next is going to be cardio. I'm still at around the same amount of cardio that I started my bulk with, which is approximately 200 calories, which, you know, using the machines would equate to somewhere between between 10 and 15 minutes of cardio, depending on the intensity. And once a week, at least, sometimes twice, I'm doing a high intensity cardio session in the form of a run. Now, this is going to be a very high intensity run where I'm holding a literal 180 beat per minute heart rate. It could be a 5K that I'm doing on my days that I'm not training, or both in the same week. Really depends on how I feel and depends on a few different factors. I do the intense cardio sessions a little bit more off feel, depending on the gym I'm going to, and depending on if my legs are sore, if that's sore, if I need recovery, and so on, but at least one high intensity session per week to keep my VO2 max as high as possible. And in fact, being the fact that I've gained 15 pounds over the course of this bulk, I am now 15 pounds heavier with not all that much excess fat gained, and cardio is either at the same level or even potentially improved. So that's a win-win as far as I'm concerned, all right? Now, let's talk about supplements. So my supplement stack is pretty serious now, and a big reason for that is because over the course of this bulk, I have signed with Allmax. I am sponsored by Allmax now, which is my favorite and has always been my favorite supplement company around. So obviously I'm very excited about that. And for this reason, I have the luxury of adding in more supplements to my regimen, all right? Now, because of that, I've added certain supplements that would be notably luxury supplements, and I can make a whole separate video on my entire stack and breakdown as to how I use it, why I use it, what to add, what else I'm adding to it, and so on. If you want, just drop a comment. I'll be happy to make that video. But here's what we need to know. Creatine, I'm always staying on that. Whey protein, I actually almost never have, okay, because I just don't need it. I hit my protein very easily with whole food sources, which is ideal. You shouldn't be reliant, especially when you're bulking, you got all these calories, you're really using protein shakes to hit those targets. Come on now. You're slacking, you're being lazy. So I'm hitting whole food protein sources 90% of the time, and that's why I set my protein a little bit higher as well, because if I happen to miss it by a little bit, I'm still probably within a good amount to maximize muscle protein synthesis, okay, with whole food sources. So creatine and whey protein is there in case I need it. Now, on top of that, I have my intra-workout carbs in the form of Carbion mixed with my EAAs, Muscle EAA Extreme from Allmax. By the way, if you want to stack up on the ultimate highest quality supplements for the best prices, use code JMango15 at checkout at allmaxnutrition.com or .ca, and you'll save yourself 15%. So I have the intra-workout stack, and now the luxury products I've added in to help just milk out every little ounce of gains I can get as a natural. L-carnitine liquid form. I'm taking that every training day, 30 minutes before my training session. I'm also replacing my coffee. Sometimes I would have coffee in the morning. In fact, that was becoming more regular. Now it's almost daily, except for rest days. I'm having a new product from Allmax that's called Amino Cuts. So it's essentially natural caffeine with EAAs, BCAAs, some more L-carnitine, taurine, focus agents, etc. inside of that, so I can stay anabolic basically as long all the fucking time. I want to be anabolic all the goddamn time, all right? And on top of those two, I have BCAAs and I have glutamine, just to triple down on whatever I can to cover my bases. Okay, obviously those supplements, they're not worth spending the money on if you have a limited budget and you don't have your bases covered yet. But assuming you have extra cash to spend, you're in a position like me where you have everything fucking maximized, you're natural, you want to maximize and get more of an edge, then looking into luxury supplements like that would be a great idea, because I'm telling you, my training has been to a next level as of the last month or so when I've introduced these luxury products. Again, I'm not going to blame it all. I'm not going to allocate the fact that I'm taking these luxury supplements to the fact that my training is now hitting a stride it hasn't hit in half a decade, and the way I feel and recover, but I'm just saying there's no way that it hurt. I'm sure it helped to some degree, okay? So that's basically that. Let's talk about some of the big changes and some of the things I learned during this time that I think will help you shorten your time to learn this stuff yourself. First and foremost, I have changed my training sessions. Now, at the beginning of the bulk and for the last several years, I've been training mostly fasted in the morning, and I actually loved it. And I still love it. At the odd time, I still have to do that. Like actually tomorrow, I have a photo shoot with Allmax. So I'm gonna have to train first thing in the morning. I'm probably gonna do it fasted, okay? Because it's just not practical to wake up, eat something, and then try to get to the gym as soon as you can after doing that. Nonetheless, I loved training fasted, and my intra-workout stack was great to have to prevent any sort of potential drawback of doing that, because it is less than optimal. But lately, I have switched to hitting the gym at 12:30 to 1 p.m. Okay, so afternoon time. And let me tell you, it has probably been a much greater contributor to why my performance has been through the roof. Pumps are absolutely insane, to the point where I'm literally starting to think somebody's slipping steroids into my food. Somebody's injecting me, and I'm waking up a little. Maybe that's why my glutes are sore. Somebody's injecting me while I'm sleeping. What's going on here, right? I am going to attribute a lot of that to the fact that I've changed the schedule, and now I have 2 full meals before this training session. With those meals, I'm also getting in the amino cuts in the morning with hydration, right? So I'm salting these meals like crazy, tons of carbs, tons of protein, some healthy fats in there, lots of sodium, hydration complex leading up to it, the L-carnitine. Going into these training sessions well fed has been an absolute game changer. My performance is through the roof, and I just forgot how much of a difference it really makes. Now, obviously, you have to be timing these things properly. I just so happen to have found the schedule very quickly where I can time exactly how I need to feel, how hydrated, how to optimize performance with the right amount of protein, carbs, and obviously electrolytes beforehand. You might need to experiment a little bit to do the same, but if you can get a training session a little bit later on in the day, it's going to be better than fasted, okay? So that's a huge thing that I haven't trained later in the day in many, many years, and now I'm realizing just how much of a difference it makes. So that's a big one. Next, my sleep schedule. I mentioned this slightly before, but my sleep schedule, I shifted it, whereas waking up super, super early, it's not practical in the modern day for 99% of people. It just isn't. And I was waking up at 4 a.m., 3:30 a.m. I've got the vlogs on the channel. 3:30, 4 a.m., 4:30, 5 a.m. All these times I was waking up at. It's not practical if you want to be on a certain sleep schedule and actually have a life. Reduce psychological stress, actually enjoy life in the process. It's going to be very difficult to do and still get 8 hours a night to maximize performance and recovery. This way of waking up a little bit later, if you can manage it, of course, I recommend doing it, or at least experimenting with it, and setting yourself in a way where it's easier. Just like with the protein, I overshoot protein. I make sure that I'm waking up at 7 a.m. every single day. That's another thing. It's consistent on the weekends, same thing, because it's not crazy early. It's not crazy late. It's a perfect time to wake up any day of the week. And then I'm going to sleep usually around 10:30 maybe, depending on what I'm doing that day. Latest I go to sleep is 11, which is very reasonable. Again, what the fuck are we doing past 11, right? Okay, I go to sleep at 11. I got 8 hours that night, or at least 7.5 solid hours of sleep, waking up at the same time. Hormones are clocked in. This has been absolutely amazing. So clearly there's a lot of changes here that are contributing to this bulk being as successful as it's been so far. Hopefully you're starting to put the pieces together as to just how much you can dial things in as well. Let's talk about the next thing. When I wake up in the morning at 7, first thing I'm doing is movement. I'm going out for a walk. Well, I'm chugging my water and I'm going straight out for a walk, okay? Now, when it gets colder here, easy to do right now. I live in Canada. Soon, the fucking 9 to 12 months of the year, it's not exactly in the best possible condition to do that. And when it gets really cold and it's snowy out, yeah, I'm probably not going to want to do it every time. Probably get like a treadmill inside or something, watch some TV first thing in the morning, get the mind going and get the blood flowing. I found that this really helps regulate my blood sugar, and you combine that with eating tons of the right stuff up to the training session. I find that this will probably help you make the most of your training as well. So if you're waking up, you're not really doing anything until you work out, like way later on in the day, it's probably not as ideal as it would be getting some movement in first thing in the morning, help stabilize some blood sugar and things like this. So something to try, something that's been working really well for me. Next, auto-regulating volumes to keep deloads to a minimum. So I did have to deload a couple times so far during this bulk. One of those times was in June, so just over a month ago or a month and a half ago, where I went to Italy and I essentially didn't train. Now, is that really a deload? Because I was drinking all the time. I slept 4 hours a night and the travel was pretty intense. No, I don't think so, right? But outside of that, I did have to deload at least a few more times. And right now what I'm doing is I'm auto-regulating volume a little bit more, understanding when I'm going through a little bit more psychological stress, tapering back if need be for a couple of sessions there. I'm noticing that a muscle's been feeling a little bit more sore than usual, cutting back on some sets for a week or two, and kind of playing to see where that sweet spot is to hold that muscle in a position where it can keep progressing, keep getting good amounts of volume in, but not too much to where it's regressing or getting too fatigued. So I'm auto-regulating volume, and it's something that you'll get better at doing, and I recommend that you try doing as you go. Don't think that the split or the program you have set up is just written in stone. There's got to be a form of auto-regulation if you want to really optimize and understand what works best for you. Okay, next, injury management and recovery. Recently, I sustained my first in-gym injury in a long time, and that was a very, very slight strain of my left pec. Now, as of yesterday, I have basically gotten to 95% recovery already. That's about 3 weeks. And next week, I do expect to be back fully with full intensity and essentially volumes, though they've tapered down now, for the chest. You need to learn how to manage injuries. Understand that injuries may occur. Listen to your body to make sure that they don't get any worse than they were, or, this left pec strain could have been way worse if I was pushing a lot harder. I felt I wasn't 100% there. So when the second I felt anything, I laid off. Okay, I'm taking some time to recover. It's never a bad thing to over-recover, to overspend time on recovery. But here's the thing. When you get injured or when these little tweaks happen here or there, it could be an opportunity for you to pivot. So for me, I had to lay off the chest work for a little bit. And I thought, you know what? This is the perfect time because my chest has actually been pretty good. It's looking fine. This is the perfect time to pivot to focusing purely on delts. And then I realized, you know what? I should focus on delts the rest of this bulk because I've been focusing on chest for the last 10 months. Let's swap the focus to mainly delts. And this way I was able to ease back into the chest training without having to worry about it needing to be prioritized. And it gave me the room, the flexibility to recover from this injury properly, patiently, and at the same time maximize gains somewhere else. Okay? So bouncing back and moving around injuries and learning when to pull forward, pull back, allocating volume intelligently, and swapping priorities when or if need be is a super important skill that will take you further on that bulk and prevent the bulk from ending prematurely, right? Next is exercise selection and bringing up weak points. So on the topic of the delts, I went back to, in fact, I'm going to put these 2 points together, okay? Because the last point is the importance of having documented my journey over the years, not just on YouTube, but all of my data in various different formats, my training sessions and so forth. Having done that, I can look back at when my physique had a certain dominant point that maybe I lost over the years because of whatever, ever since the pandemic, things kind of went downhill for me for various reasons. Ever since then, now I'm looking back, okay, I want to build my shoulders. You know what? In 2018, my shoulders were the best they've ever looked. They were the biggest and leanest and strongest. What was I doing then, or in 2019? I was overhead pressing with a barbell, standing overhead press. And I thought, well, guess what? That's what I need to go back to. That is what blew them up. When I look at everything else, it was high frequency with the shoulders, which I'm doing, lateral raises, rear delt stuff. but it was the specific inclusion of overhead press and getting brutally strong at that really made a difference for my physique. And the key to that is exercise selection. These days, people make the mistake of basing it solely on theory. Oh, it needs to have a right stimulus to fatigue ratio. Oh, it needs to be externally stabilized or else it's suboptimal for motor unit recruitment. All of that stuff doesn't actually matter in the end. The more experience you gain testing out movements for yourself, and you should test, especially the bare bones basics like free weight barbell movements, test them for yourself. Don't take somebody else's word for it. Don't take a research paper's word for it. Try it yourself. Next thing you know, you're doing a certain movement and you'll be like, this just feels good. My lats never got sore from anything else. The bent over row really did something for it. Take that feedback seriously. Don't dismiss these things just because of some research paper that's out there that comes out, well, or because of some people who do more research than they do lifting in general. They don't have physiques, but they can come out here and give you all the fancy terminology to make it sound like, oh, it's super smart. Don't fall for it. Test things yourself. If I didn't do that, I would miss out on my best possible shoulder gains, because I would not do a standing overhead press, because people are afraid to do that these days because, well, just sit down. No. You don't realize something. Sitting down, there's so much nuance when it comes to this. The reason overhead press works for me, I've realized, is with the grip that I have, I can come down all the way like this, basically touch the chest. And I can do that because when I'm pressing, when you're doing it standing, you have the ability to bring the head back and press directly overhead, okay? To where your arms are literally finishing right above you. And then you can come back down with the elbows tucked. This is gonna put an insane emphasis on the side delts as well as the front delts. Huge stretch on the front delts at the bottom, all that stuff. That can't be done in a seated overhead press fashion most of the time, the way the things are set up. It's not the same movement, okay? Or in a machine. Your elbows are locked in a different way. It doesn't have the fluidity that would work better for somebody's anatomy, in this case, mine. Now, an overhead press may not work well for you, or, a barbell squat. Some people, the barbell squat will be superior for massive legs than the hack squat, for some people out there. Now, for me, it seems that the hack squat is more than enough, but genetics play a big role to this, okay? Preference plays a big role, anatomy plays a big role. The more experience you gather and get, the more training history you have in a variety of ways, the more N equals 1, which is a fancy way to say it, the anecdote of what's worked for you, becomes the most important thing. And the less stock you put into the latest research paper, that stuff, when people get stuck up on the latest research paper, the latest data shows this, that, and the other, those people are usually inexperienced, and they think that this is a way to bypass all the mistakes or bypass all the work that has to be done to test out every movement properly for mesocycles, gathering data, different rep ranges, seeing what works for them, packing on muscle over 10, 12, 24 months. They're thinking that science is going to help save them all of that work. It may help save 1 or 2 months total by the end of it, but ultimately, N equals 1 is all that matters in this game by the end. Studies will come out and help support certain points or not, more or less, but there's always going to be people on opposite ends of those points anyways. So it's not to say disregard data. The data is very important to help guide decisions that can be more generalized for beginners, general population, and stuff where we can make more general statements that will be more accurate. Fine. But when it comes to your training specifically, do not put so much stock in studies to where you're now sacrificing the ability to test things for yourself and run yourself as the scientific experiment. And I'm glad I did that over the years, so that I know exactly what has worked best for me in the past, and I can put little spins and tweaks on that and see if there's something even better in the future. But a study isn't going to tell me that. It might help guide me in a direction where I say, okay, let me test that. And then I might come back and say, no, that didn't work. Or you know what, I did like that. This study was garbage for me. This study, I like this. Let me follow that methodology. Now I'm going to create my methodology surrounding the point I initially got from the study. So I hope this makes sense. I'm yapping as always. That is basically that, and exercise selection and how you should probably go about it. Be more open-minded about it, and just record your training data. You're still going to be doing this in 10 years, are you not? The time's going to pass anyway. Isn't it better to have 10 years of documentation that you can look back at and see exactly what went well, what didn't, and so forth? I can't tell you how invaluable that is. I'm my own biggest fan when it comes to my YouTube channel. I'll go back and watch my own videos, my own vlogs, and I'm like, man, I looked so good there. Man, that technique was great. Man, sometimes you don't even realize, or sometimes you'll forget. You're quick to forget And sometimes people are like, I used to have such a great physique, and now, I feel like I've never been able to get this body part back to where it was, and so on. I'll never have that issue because I've documented things, and I do recommend that you do the same. It doesn't have to be posted on a YouTube channel, but if you can have the data in the form of numbers, in the form of spreadsheets and all that, that'll be massive. And by the way, with that said, if you want a complete tracking system to help you do that, the tracking system that I personally use to actually gather all this data, then click the first link in the description and you'll get the free tracking system combined with a bunch of other free resources in what's called my complete physique bundle. Okay, just type in your email, you get it for free. The next thing is the Modern Physique Hub. You want to take it to the next level. You're already dedicated to the gym, but you want to optimize your training ASAP. You want some access to me as well, a digital community, resources every month, updated programming, nutrition help, all that kind of stuff, weekly coaching calls, anything else like this. That's going to be the second link in the description, Modern Physique Hub. You can join for only $1.56 a day, which is absolutely amazing, month to month. If you want direct one-on-one coaching with me to optimize things for you the fastest possible way with direct help with, every single adjustment you need week to week, complete reviews and overhauls, and essentially the fastest results possible. If you have some extra money, then be sure to check out the third link in the description to join my coaching roster, as there's still spots open. And then the fourth link is going to be any of my one-off training or nutrition programs. If you're just somebody who's looking for a one-off program to help get you back in the gym cranking it, or take your results to the next level in the gym with a simple program that explains things for you there, or you want to master your fat loss nutrition, you can go ahead and do that with the fourth link in the description. And aside from that, I hope that you found this video helpful. If you want to see like a full day of eating or my supplement stack, like I mentioned, or something else surrounding this topic, let me know. I'd be happy to make that. Or any other fitness and physique related topics you'd like to see, just drop them in the comments below and I'd be happy to make them as always. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm out.